Everyone's talking about it, the looming recession. But let's be real for a second. It's not just the next scary headline. It's something you can prepare for and even benefit from. So, what's the plan? We're about to dive into some real strategies that will help you to not only survive, but thrive in a downturn. We've got Robert Kiyosaki, Jaspreet Singh from Minority Mindset, and Richard Coffin from Plain Bagel on deck. And guess what? Not all their advice lines up. Let's break it down and see who's really prepared for the recession. Okay, before we get into the heavyweights, let's clear something up. What even is a recession? It's like the financial equivalent of the hangover you get after a wild party. The economy has been growing. Then boom, it slows down for 2 straight quarters. Translation? Businesses stop making as much money, people lose jobs, spending drops, and things get uncomfortable. But here's the good news. Recessions don't last forever. Historically, they've averaged about 10 months since 1945. And yes, they're tough, but they also bring major opportunities for people who know where to look. Before we get to the juicy part where we pit the strategies of Kiyosaki, Singh and Coffin against each other, let's talk about why recessions even matter. Why are they more than just scary headlines? And what can we learn from the ghosts of recessions past? Trust me, history's got some wild lessons. Let's go way back. Picture this. It's 1929. Everyone's riding high on the stock market, partying like there's no tomorrow. People are buying stocks like they're candy. And then, boom. It all comes crashing down on what's now called Black Tuesday. Stocks plummet, banks fail, and the economy? It's now like a car that ran out of gas in the middle of the freeway. It didn't take long for the pain to hit home. In the US, 1 in 4 people were jobless. Imagine 25% unemployment. Whole families stood in breadlines just to get a meal. And banks? They were locking doors faster than you could say, withdrawal. People lost everything, homes, savings, jobs. Over in Germany, things got so bad economically that people were looking for someone to blame. That's when a certain guy named Adolf Hitler came onto the scene. So yeah, the ripple effects of the Great Depression were more than just financial. They were political, social, and global. But here's the kicker. As bad as it was, it sparked one of the most radical transformations in US history. Ever heard of the New Deal? It created millions of jobs, built schools, roads, and bridges, and pretty much shaped the economy we have today. The whole idea of government safety nets, like Social Security, born out of that chaos. Now, fast forward to the 1970s, when people weren't freaking out about stocks. They were freaking out about gas. The 1973 oil crisis hits, and suddenly, the price of gas quadruples. You've got people lining up at gas stations for hours, hoping they don't run out of fuel before their turn. This is when the term stagflation was born. Basically, the economy's not growing, inflation's through the roof, and unemployment's climbing. It was like being stuck in a financial quicksand. This wasn't just happening in the US. Europe was hit too. In fact, Britain had to borrow money from the International Monetary Fund just to stay afloat. And here's a fun fact. That oil crisis, it pushed the world to start exploring alternative energy. The move toward nuclear power and later renewables started here. So yeah, crisis breeds innovation, sometimes because it has to. Now, let's talk about a recession that most of us remember. The 2008 financial crisis. This one didn't start with oil or wars. Nope. It started with banks and risky mortgages. Remember the housing bubble? People were buying homes they couldn't afford because banks were handing out loans like Halloween candy. The moment of realization. When Lehman Brothers, a giant investment bank, collapsed. When that domino fell, it took the global financial system down with it. Suddenly, home prices tanked, people lost jobs, and trillions in wealth disappeared overnight. But what's interesting here, out of that rubble came some game-changing ideas. The Federal Reserve went all in on something called quantitative easing, essentially printing money to keep the economy from flatlining. And oh yeah, Bitcoin was born out of this mess by people who were sick of trusting banks with their money. So, we're talking financial innovation here. Finally, the most recent recession, the one we all lived through, COVID-19. Remember when the entire world basically hit the pause button? Businesses shut down, travel stopped, and supply chains collapsed. It was the first time in modern history that a health crisis literally froze the global economy. The moment we realized the seriousness? When governments everywhere started imposing lockdowns. By April 2020, Unemployment in the US had hit 14.7%, the highest since the Great Depression. And here's where it gets interesting. While the pandemic wrecked industries like travel and hospitality, it also sped up others. E-commerce boomed, remote work became the new normal, and companies that adapted quickly, like Amazon, thrived. We saw the future of work and shopping accelerate by years in just a matter of months. So, why do I bring all this up? Because history has a funny way of repeating itself. Every recession brings pain, yes, but it also brings transformation, new opportunities for those who can see through the chaos. Which brings us to today, and the question, what can we learn from these past recessions to navigate the next one? That's where the strategies from Kiyosaki, Singh, and Coffin come in. They've each got different takes on how to come out on top when the economy tanks. And yeah, they don't always agree. But if history has taught us anything, it's that being prepared, having a strategy, can make all the difference between just surviving and actually thriving. Let's start with Robert Kiyosaki, the guy who made Rich Dad, Poor Dad a household name. His take on recessions? It's simple. Recessions are the ultimate opportunity to buy the assets the rich use to get richer. But here's the kicker. Kiyosaki doesn't believe in saving cash. Nope, not even during tough times. He says cash loses value during recessions because inflation eats away at it. His advice? Buy assets like gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Now don't get me wrong. Gold and Bitcoin have performed well in recent crises, no doubt. Gold shot up over 25% during the 2008 crash, and Bitcoin has had massive booms. But here's where you need to fact-check Kiyosaki, not keeping any cash. Risky move. Experts at CNBC and the Wall Street Journal say holding a solid emergency fund is still crucial because, newsflash, bills don't wait for your gold to appreciate. We're about to get into some more serious strategies here, but before we do, if you're finding value in what we've covered so far, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because recessions don't wait for anyone, and staying ahead of the game means staying informed. Another piece of Kiyosaki's advice: don't catch falling knives. Translation: just because a stock has dropped doesn't mean it's a bargain. In fact, it could be on its way to crashing even further. Kiyosaki warns against diving into stocks just because they've dropped by 10%, 20%, or even 50%. He's all about waiting for the dust to settle. So here's where we fact-check. He's actually right. Research from the Financial Analyst's Journal shows that in many cases, those who rush to buy during a steep decline end up regretting it. Timing the market is incredibly tough. But if you have a long-term strategy and you're prepared for volatility, that's where the magic happens. Enter Jaspreet Singh's strategy.
The thing that you got to understand is poop. Yes, I said poop. Not poo, but poop. The 2020 pandemic recession, the 2008 housing market recession, and the 2000 dot-com recession all had one thing in common, and that is poop, which is I want you to start by taking a little breath and understanding poop. What is poop? Poop is that panic leads to overselling, leads to opportunity, leads to profits.
Now, Jaspreet Singh is coming to us from Minority Mindset, and his strategy? It's all about poop. No, really. It's an acronym. Panic, oversell, opportunity, profit. According to Jaspreet, recessions start with panic. People freak out, sell their assets at a loss, and that creates opportunity for you to swoop in and grab those investments at a discount. Then profit when the market recovers. It's basically the Black Friday of investing. Jaspreet's advice is solid, but it's not without risks. Timing is key. If you jump in too early during the panic phase, you might end up holding assets that take longer to recover, or worse, never do. Think of companies that tanked during 2008 and never bounced back, like Lehman Brothers. So how do you actually apply the POOP model? Look at sectors that historically recover well. Tech stocks like Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple were major winners post-2008. They were oversold during the panic, but exploded afterward. The key is buying quality companies, not just any stock that's down. Finally, let's slow it down with Richard Coffin from Plain Bagel.
The first thing being, before anything else, take a good look in the mirror and analyze your risk tolerance. I know that it's a boring starting point, but your investments will only do as well as you're prepared to allow them. The Dalbar studies have consistently shown that equity investors underperform the index not only because of the shortcomings of active management, but because they often sell at inopportune times.
Richard's advice: before you even think about investing, take a deep breath and assess your risk tolerance. Not everyone can handle the ups and downs of the market, and that's okay. Coffin suggests that the first step isn't jumping into stocks or gold, but knowing your financial boundaries. Coffin's method is backed by research. Studies show that investors who panic and sell during market dips consistently underperform compared to those who hold their positions and ride out the volatility. So, if you know that seeing your portfolio drop 20% will send you into a cold sweat, maybe stick to safer assets. Coffin's advice also emphasizes diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. During recessions, sectors like consumer staples, healthcare, and utilities tend to do better because, well, people still need toothpaste, medical care, and electricity. So while tech might offer high rewards, having a mix of recession-resistant stocks gives you a safety net. So, what's the ultimate strategy? Kiyosaki tells us to stay away from cash and invest in assets like gold and Bitcoin, but that can be risky without an emergency fund. Jaspreet says to embrace the P.O.P model. Buy during the panic and profit later, but only if you pick quality stocks. And Coffin? He reminds us to know our risk tolerance and diversify. The best approach? It's a mix of all three. Have some cash reserves, pick your opportunities wisely, and diversify to protect yourself against risk. But here's the million-dollar question. If recessions create so much opportunity, why do people still fear them? In my next video, we'll break down the industries that thrive during economic downturns. Trust me, it's not just toilet paper and hand sanitizer. We'll uncover the sectors that are practically recession-proof and show you how to tap into them before everyone else catches on. So if you want to know where to put your money when the economy hits a speed bump, hit subscribe, click the bell, and stay ahead of the game. You don't want to miss this one. All right, finance buffs, now that you're armed with strategies from Kiyosaki, Singh, and Coffin, it's time to start planning your recession-proof future. Remember, the key isn't to panic, it's to prepare. Whether you're stacking up gold bars like Kiyosaki, hunting for opportunities like Jaspreet, or diversifying like Richard, make sure you have a plan that works for you.